Hey guys, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome back to another God of War video. And today, with us still coming off the hype of that fantastic story trailer, today I wanted to go back over said trailer and focus in on one of the craziest moments that really caught me off guard, and that is the return of the Valkyries. And yes, I say that with a plural, because if you thought that just fighting one sucked, well, now looks like we may have to deal with two at a time. But with that being said, who are these Valkyries? And what does this all exactly mean? Because at the end of the 2018 game, we do have the side quest of freeing the Valkyries of their mortal forms. So, with Sigrun's defeat, it did imply that the world of man would be purged of the undead, so a sort of peace would be ushered into the afterlife. But we couldn't have been more wrong. It seems like Odin's obsession of his destined fate has consumed all and any allies around him, devouring him in his void of mania as a new age of Valhalla has been born. So today, we will be talking about who these new Valkyries could be, theorize what happened to the previous league, and of course, relay this back to their mythological influence, as it may indeed hold answers to what exactly is going on here, crafting a better understanding of just how this all came to be. But before we do start, guys, quick reminder as always that if possible, I would super appreciate it if we could get this video to about 500 likes. It's a small and minor thing, but it really does go a long way. Not just for this video, but this channel out as a whole. Also, we're at 390k. Thank you guys. Let's try to get it to 400. So if you wish to go that extra step, please don't forget to subscribe as well as tick that bell. But anyway, let's get back to the video. Before we begin to touch on these newer Valkyries, let's first have a quick recap of the events that predate the 2018 game and what may have possibly become of these Valkyries by the end of it. Now, sometime in Asgard, following the birth of Baldur, the great and mighty Allfather would learn of the great prophecy, Ragnarok, a cataclysmic event that would mark the end of his reign at the hands of their greatest enemies, the giants. Obsessed to that of a paranormal level, Odin very quickly started to turn against those that opposed him during these end days, culling the Jotnar of Midgard and even exiling his own. This included the likes of Tyr, Mimir, and most importantly, Freya. Her exile tossed the world of the afterlife into disarray, as during her time at his side, she would be given the mantle as Queen of the Valkyries. But with her incarceration, the Valkyries would suffer a relatively similar fate, as Odin's care for these angels of death quickly wavered. So, as a way of removing them from his service, he would bind these daughters of fate to that of mortal forms, something that was largely deemed unnatural for these spiritual beings. Being made of flesh and bone drove each of the 9 Valkyries mad, turning them into volatile beasts. Their replacement queen, Sigrun, was actually forced to imprison each of her sisters before casting herself into a bottomless void, hoping that by doing so, she could prevent any damage they might cause. Now, many decades later, the Valkyries would be freed, courtesy of the exiled Olympian Kratos and his son Atreus, as both of them had taken on the duty of fighting against the Allfather's mad crusade. Their release meant that the afterlife could be restored, and thus order would be ushered to the land of the dead. At least, so it had seemed. It was only up until the first Ragnarok trailer where we saw that Draugr was still roaming the realm of Midgard, so it did imply that something had happened to the Valkyries, that they may have failed on their quest. But now, we see that these aren't the Valkyries of old, but in fact, very new Valkyries. Ones made of corporeal flesh that are able to coherently speak in these new forms. So, how could this be? Well, whilst not clear, but very heavily insinuated. It seems like when the Valkyrie 9 returned to that of Valhalla, they were stopped by the Allfather. Still seeing no need for them, it seems like the Allfather may have taken the Valkyries and simply dissolved them into nothingness, both metaphorically and probably literally, as he gave them life. For so it can be taken. But it's been abundantly clear that whilst Odin had no interest in them, at least in terms of carrying the dead to the afterlife, it does look like he bears some interest in the savage nature of the Valkyries. Or so, in a way, interested in weaponizing them as part of his Einherjar army. Now, this part is theoretical on my end, but does actually line up with how things have been set up narratively. So, after seeing the ruin the Valkyries can cause, and knowing that it is possible to bestow someone with wings, as it was established with Freya, I think Odin would reach out to shield maidens, ones left in the world of Midgard, and offer those warriors an opportunity to serve at his side, as their lifelong devotion to the Allfather would be seen as a reward. Although it's considered a great gift to be given the opportunity to be granted a seat in Valhalla, being bestowed with the wings of a Valkyrie is considered to be the highest of honors Odin can really give a mortal. Now, is this at all possible? Because we know that a god can wield the power of a Valkyrie, but what about that of mortals? Well, this actual idea in itself actually does derive from a number of different Nordic texts, where Odin grants mortals the wings of a Valkyrie. So the Norse world of God of War could definitely take some influence from its mythological counterpart, and it would make sense for how a new age of Valkyries could be ushered in. But with that said, who could these two Valkyries be? Well, I'm gonna have to be honest here. It's nigh impossible to really say who they are, because as of making this video, the only thing that distinguishes each Valkyrie from each other is their helmet, wings, and presumably fighting style. So with that said, I will be touching on each and every known Valkyrie outside of the 9 we've already met. We will be talking about their names and what they translate to, as it could give us an idea of how they might fight. Also, worth noting, the tales of the Valkyries are ones that are spread far and wide. Thus, they are not strictly limited to the original Nordic texts, as there's tons of influences from Germanic tales and other European countries. So one Valkyrie here might in fact have 3 or 4 different stories about her. Also, you know how I've previously said that there was 23 Valkyries? Yeah, my bad. Turns out there's 39. That's a lot of Valkyries to cover, but we will be touching on the remaining 30, starting with the most important, and then moving to the minor ones. So, let's begin. Our first Valkyrie is the infamous Brunhildr, probably the most well-known Valkyrie, as she was known as the leader of the Valkyries. Brunhildr's legend have chronicled her as a strong and defiant ally of Odin, having turned her back on the Allfather. She is the only Valkyrie on record that was cast out from her sisters, being stripped of her wings and locked away in a tower surrounded by fire. Totally not overkill, Odin. She would only be freed once the stronghold was breached by a strong Germanic hero called Sigurd, better known across the world as Siegfried the Dragon Slayer. So yes, this is yet one example of a Valkyrie that ties into another tale and legend. We then next get a quadruplet of Valkyries that are all affiliated with spears. We have Geirahut, translating to battle spear, Geiravu, meaning spear vor, Geironu, which means the one that charges forth with the spear, and Gjarskurgu, which, to no one's surprise, means spear bearer. So yes, a lot of spear enthusiasts amongst the Valkyries. We then have Gol, whose name translates as tumult or noise/ battle. She is said to have been one of the Valkyries who personally serves by Odin's side in battle. Next is Thor, who translates to fetter of the army. We then have Herja, who was a Valkyrie who was known for her ferocity, as she was also better known as a Germanic goddess. And I mean, hey, her name even translates to the one who devastates. We next have Svanti, meaning swan white. She is daughter of a Germanic king and is sister to a Valkyrie we've already encountered, Olrun. We then have a trio who judge those who will die in battle. Starting off, we have Jamprimul, who translates the helmet clatter, Radgrider, which translates the council truce, Skarlamord, meaning sword time, and finally, we have Sigurdrifa, which means inciter to victory. Our next Valkyrie here is yet another sister of Olrun, and that is Hirvor Alvintar, which means all-wise strange creature. Our next Valkyrie is Brunhildr, which means strength or power, and she is said to be an ancient Valkyrie, one that actually serves the Einherjar army in the halls of Valhalla prior to the events of Ragnarok. Now, bear with me here, because there's a lot of names, and it might get a little bit jarring here, but I will be touching on the lesser known Valkyries now, and what their names translate to. We have Jorprimul, which translates to that of the female swords warrior. We have Lok, which translates to noise of death. Wrist, which translates to the quaking one. Rund, meaning prickler. Mist, translates to, well, what do you think mist is? Rangrid, meaning shield destroyer. Rainleaf, which actually means daughter of the gods. Skigol, translating to axe age. Skoldgul, meaning shaker. And Hightower. Skald, meaning debt or future. Svyayud, meaning vibration or noise. Svipul, translating to changeable. Pon, which means silence. And finally, Prima, meaning fight in Valkyrie. There's a lot going on here from what you can tell, and I do apologize if that was a bit jarring, but as you can clearly tell, there's a lot of Valkyries in Norse mythology, with many of them only ever really referenced to by name or the role they are supposed to have. So not every single one of these Valkyries aren't quite as fleshed out as their leader, Brunhildr. But from going over their names and how they translate, as you can tell, there are many Valkyries that specialize in different forms of combat, utilizing spears, axes, and even a sword. So with this information in mind, it gives you a rough idea of what each Valkyrie could actually bring to the table in terms of combat. But with that said, that doesn't necessarily mean that we will be fighting all of the 30 Valkyries here. I mean, hell, there's still a few gods that are important during Ragnarok that are yet to be revealed or even announced. And with that in mind, we don't even know if these new or possibly mortal Valkyries will be anywhere near as strong as the ones we met in the 2018 game. So narratively, if they are built off a mortal form, this might serve as a way to tone them down if they become a normal boss enemy type. But this is all a theory at best, but one that I most certainly feel is grounded in the foundation of God of War. But for now everyone, that's been it for this video that covers the remaining Valkyries that we are yet to see. Now, yes, we couldn't really answer who these two are, but can you really blame me? Out of the 30 options we've had here, there's simply nothing that we have to work off. But at least we know what we are getting ourselves into, especially if they decide to stick with the 30 Valkyries. Dear God, I don't think I'm ready for that. Now, what do you think is going on with this new legion of Valkyries? Do you think they are formed from the shield maidens of Midgard, or do you believe they are instead beings forged by Odin's will? Please do comment down below, as I would love to hear what you have to say. But for now everyone, that has been it for me. So as always everyone, stay strong, stay well, and keep on fighting as Ragnarok comes for us all. Take care everyone, I'll see you soon.